My brother demanded I miss my graduation to babysit his kids and labeled me an attention seeker for picking hats and gowns. So I gave him a nightmare vacation. Start with a deep, almost sighing breath, then a slow, intense delivery. You know, that special kind of fury? The one reserved for family who consistently try to sabotage your biggest life moments? For years, I let my brother Kevin get away with it. But my master's graduation? That's where I finally drew the line, and he learned exactly what happens when you push someone too far. It all started 2 weeks before my graduation, the culmination of 6 grueling years of night school, working full-time while pursuing my master's degree. Kevin called, not to congratulate me, but to announce he'd booked a surprise anniversary trip to Hawaii for his wife. He needed me to watch his 3 kids for 5 days. He didn't ask. He told me the dates. He said he'd dropped them off the night before. My heart sank. Those exact dates were my graduation ceremony and the party I'd spent months planning. I told him. He actually laughed. "You can walk at the next ceremony in December," he said. I tried to explain, this wasn't just any degree. This was my master's, a huge milestone. His response? "It's just a walk across a stage. Your education will still be there, but Hawaii tickets are non-refundable." I was floored. My jaw dropped. I reminded him that I'd invited 50 people, including our grandmother, who was flying in all the way from Florida. Kevin snapped back, accusing me of being selfish, of choosing a piece of paper over family. He said his kids needed their aunt more than I needed to wear a silly hat and gown. When I finally said no, the anger in his voice was chilling. He said I'd already been his backup plan, and he'd told his wife about the trip. He couldn't disappoint her because of my need for attention. He sneered, "Real adults don't need ceremonies to feel accomplished. You're being immature, wanting people to clap for you." I asked why he couldn't just get a babysitter. "I don't trust strangers," he said, "and family is supposed to help each other." He'd watched his kids for free their whole lives, so somehow I owed him for being their aunt. This wasn't new. This was Kevin. He'd pulled this stunt before. I'd missed my LSAT because he showed up with his kids, claiming an emergency. When I got my bachelor's, he brought his sick toddlers to the ceremony, and I spent the entire time in the bathroom with a vomiting child instead of walking across that stage. Every single milestone I'd ever had, Kevin found a way to make it about his needs. But this time I had a plan. A quiet, simmering plan. I took a deep breath and told him, "Fine, Kevin. I'll watch the kids. You can drop them off the morning of your flight." He was absolutely thrilled, already talking about how this would be good practice for when I had my own kids someday. His smugness was almost unbearable. The morning of his flight arrived, and Kevin dropped off his 3 kids, Mariana, 8, and the twins Ryder and Zoe, 5, at 7 a.m. for his 9 a.m. flight. The kids were buzzing with excitement, thanks to the special surprise I'd promised them. As soon as his car pulled away, a triumphant grin spread across my face. I dressed them in their best clothes and told them we were going to a very important party. We arrived at my graduation venue, where all my guests were waiting. I announced that my nephew and nieces would be special guests. They sat in the front row, proudly displaying signs I'd made. "Our aunt is amazing and first in the family to get a master's." When my name was called, 3 little voices screamed, "That's our AUNT," louder than anyone else in the auditorium. Everyone laughed, clapped even harder, and Mariana, my 8-year-old niece, snapped pictures with my phone while the twins threw flower petals I'd given them. It was perfect. Afterward, at my graduation party, I had a special kids' table. Coloring books about college, graduation caps they could decorate, mocktails with umbrellas. The kids were VIPs, telling anyone who would listen how smart their aunt was and how hard I'd worked. They even sang a graduation song they'd learned in the car. My grandmother, beaming, gave them candy diplomas and declared them honorary graduates. They had the time of their lives. Meanwhile, 3,000 miles away, Kevin and his wife landed in Hawaii, only to discover their hotel reservation had been canceled. Kevin had given me his credit card for emergencies with the kids. And, well, his children graduating with me. That felt like a pretty valid emergency. They ended up paying triple for a last-minute room at a different hotel. The phone call started. Kevin was furious, screaming that I was a psycho, that I'd ruined his marriage, and he would beat me when he got back. I hung up. I silenced my phone, watching the screen light up with text after text, but I didn't care. My friends crowded around the kids' table, Mariana showing off her photos, the twins covered in chocolate frosting from their third trip to the dessert bar. Grandmother Lynette sat at the head table, my diploma propped next to her, telling everyone how proud she was. My best friend from work pulled me onto the dance floor, and I let myself get swept up in the celebration. My phone kept vibrating, a constant buzz in my pocket, but I ignored it. I danced with my grandmother, who moved slower than everyone else but refused to sit down. She whispered, "This is exactly the kind of celebration you deserve." I finally pulled out my phone. 17 new messages, all from Kevin, each one more angry than the last. I read the first few, selfish, manipulative, and then shoved it back in my pocket. The kids never stopped smiling, completely oblivious to their father's meltdown. Later that night, with the kids settled at my apartment, I listened to Kevin's voicemails. The first one was a primal scream, so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. He called me every name imaginable. The second threatened to tell the whole family what a horrible person I was. By the third, his voice had dropped to a terrifying whisper, promising I'd regret this. The fourth detailed every dollar the hotel cancellation cost him, demanding repayment. The fifth dug up every past disappointment I'd ever caused him going back to childhood. The final message was the worst, a chilling, deliberate whisper. "I'll deal with you when I get back. You better watch yourself." My hands were shaking. I saved every voicemail, took screenshots of his texts. Some instinct told me I'd need this evidence. Grandmother Lynette called later. She asked how I was holding up, and I admitted Kevin's messages had been intense. There was a long pause. Then her voice softened, growing quiet. She told me Kevin had pulled similar stunts his whole life, always expecting others to rearrange their plans for his convenience. She brought up her own retirement party 15 years ago, how Kevin had insisted she reschedule it, and half her friends couldn't come. My aunt's wedding, where Kevin made a scene because it conflicted with his son's baseball game. She confessed she'd been too soft on him, always giving in to his demands because it was easier than dealing with his tantrums. Her voice cracked as she said she was proud of me for finally standing up to him. "Someone needed to show him the world doesn't revolve around his schedule," she said. Tears stung my eyes. She was glad I had the courage to do what she should have done years ago. We talked for 20 more minutes, and before hanging up, she made me promise not to let him guilt me into apologizing. The next morning, my phone showed 43 notifications in the family group chat. Kevin had posted a long message at midnight, Hawaii time, painting himself as the victim. I had agreed to watch his kids, then sabotaged his marriage out of pure spite, jealous of his happy marriage. My mom wanted me to call. My dad asked what happened. My aunt defended Kevin, saying I should have just rescheduled my graduation. My uncles chimed in, disappointed in me. Kevin had successfully made me look like a vindictive sister who couldn't handle not being the center of attention. I spent 20 minutes meticulously crafting a response. I posted it to the chat, keeping my tone calm, factual. I explained I'd told Kevin I'd watch the kids, but never promised to skip my ceremony. Then I attached 3 photos from graduation. Mariana, Zoe, and Ryder in the front row with their signs, throwing flower petals, posing with my diploma. I wrote that they had been special guests and had a wonderful time being part of such an important family milestone. Then, the mic drop, I attached screenshots of Kevin's original text messages. His demand that I skip graduation. His calling it just a walk across the stage. His comment that real adults didn't need ceremonies. His line about Hawaii tickets being non-refundable, so my education would have to wait. I hit send. For 20 minutes, nothing. The chat showed 15 people had read it. No one responded. I imagined them, reading Kevin's own words, seeing exactly how he'd talk to me. The silence was heavier than all of Kevin's angry messages combined. Then, a private message from my cousin Sarah. She said she'd been waiting years for someone to call out Kevin's manipulation. She shared a story about her engagement party, how Kevin had demanded she babysit his kids, and she'd missed her own speeches and cake cutting, only to find out later he'd just decided he didn't want to pay for childcare. At least 6 other family members have similar stories, she wrote, but nobody wanted to rock the boat. She listed names: my uncle missing his daughter's play, another cousin skipping a job interview. It went back years. Kevin being Kevin. Sarah ended by saying my screenshots had opened a lot of eyes. An unknown number called around noon. It was Kevin's college roommate, screaming that I'd ruined his best friend's marriage, that Algra was threatening divorce. I let him finish. Then I calmly asked, "Have you seen the text messages Kevin sent me?" He stammered, "That doesn't matter. Family helps each other." I asked him point blank, "Would you miss your own master's graduation for someone else's vacation?" There was a long pause. "That's different," he muttered. "How?" I pressed. He stammered something about Kevin having paid for the trip. I countered with my 50 guests, my 6 years of night school. He went quiet. "Would you miss your master's graduation to babysit someone else's kids?" I asked again. He muttered about me, twisting things around, and hung up. I hung up feeling strangely satisfied. Even Kevin's best friend couldn't defend his behavior when pressed on the specifics. On day 2 of Kevin's trip, Algra called. My stomach dropped. I braced myself for screaming, but her voice was quiet, almost hesitant. She asked if Kevin had really told me to skip my master's graduation. I confirmed it and offered to send her the text thread. "Yes," she said. I forwarded the entire conversation. 30 seconds of silence passed. Then she asked, "Did the kids actually enjoy the ceremony?" The question surprised me. I told her they'd had a wonderful time, the loudest cheers in the auditorium. I described the special kids' table, the coloring books, the mocktails. Another pause. "You made them signs?" she asked, her voice even quieter. I confirmed, mentioning how much everyone loved seeing their excitement. "Do you have photos?" she asked. I sent her a few pictures of the kids throwing flower petals, holding their signs. I could hear Algra start to cry on the phone, not loud sobs, but quiet, shuddering breaths. She said Kevin had told her I'd agreed to watch the kids at my apartment, never mentioning my graduation. She kept repeating, "I'm so sorry. I had no idea. I never would have gone if I'd known." I told her it was okay, the kids had fun. "No," she said, her voice strengthening, "it's not okay. I was part of forcing you to choose between your education and family." The tears stopped, replaced by a growing anger. Kevin had made it sound like I was doing them a favor, not that he demanded I sacrifice my milestone. She asked about the hotel cancellation. I explained Kevin's credit card was for emergencies. His children attending their aunt's graduation ceremony definitely qualified as an emergency worth the expense. She let out a short, bitter laugh. I can't even argue with that logic. Then she said, "I need to go talk to Kevin," and hung up. I stood on my balcony, wondering what that conversation was going to sound like. An hour later, Algra called back. Her voice was shaking, not with tears, but with pure anger. Kevin had been complaining for months, she said, about how I never helped with the kids, how I always put my education first. He'd made her believe I was selfish. Why would my husband lie about his own sister, she'd thought. Now, going through their conversations, she saw how many times he'd twisted situations to make me look bad. He'd told her I'd canceled babysitting last minute, when he'd asked during finals week. He'd said I refused to come to kids' birthday parties when he'd scheduled them during my classes. Example after example poured out, Algra's voice cracking as she listed them. Kevin lying to paint me as a terrible aunt. She'd judged me based on his version, never questioning why I was so consistently selfish. Now she understood. Kevin lied to ensure she wouldn't question why I was never available for his last-minute demands. She apologized again, saying she needed time to process what this meant about her marriage. I just told her I was sorry she was dealing with this. I'm not the one who deserves an apology, she said and hung up. My phone buzzed again immediately. Kevin's parents. I let it ring twice. His mom's voice was sharp, demanding an apology, repayment for the hotel. You had no right to use his credit card, it's theft, she shrieked. I waited for her to finish. Calmly, I reminded her. Kevin gave me the card for emergencies with the kids. His children attending their aunt's graduation, after he tried to make me miss it, absolutely qualified as an emergency. She started to argue, but I cut her off. I have to check on the kids. Goodbye. I hung up before the guilt trip could build. My hands shook as I set the phone down, realizing I'd been holding my breath. 20 minutes later, my doorbell rang. It was Dana, my best friend, with 2 bottles of wine and takeout. She took one look at my face, pushed past me, and went straight for the wine glasses. After pouring us generous amounts, she made me sit down and recount everything. By the end, her mouth was hanging open. She slammed her glass down. You are officially my hero, she declared, for finally standing up to his manipulation. She reminded me of all the times I'd rearranged my life for him, canceling my birthday dinner, working from his house when his kids had chicken pox. Watching those 3 kids cheer for you at graduation was the perfect response to years of Kevin treating your achievements like they didn't matter, she said. We clinked glasses, and some of the suffocating tension finally began to leave my shoulders. 2 days later, my phone rang again. My mom. My stomach dropped. She launched right into it, that disappointed tone making me feel 10 years old again. I should have been the bigger person, just rescheduled. Family should always come first. And now, Kevin's marriage was in trouble because of my selfishness. My blood pressure spiked. I gripped the phone, physically stopping myself from screaming that Kevin's marriage problems weren't my responsibility. I took 3 deep breaths. Then, in the calmest voice I could manage, I asked her, how many of my life events would you like me to sacrifice before I'm finally allowed to prioritize myself? I reminded her Kevin had already made me miss my LSAT and ruined my bachelor's graduation. This was my moment, I said, after years of hard work. My mom went completely silent. I could hear her breathing change. She said, much softer. She'd call me back. She needed to think. I knew that meant she was going to talk to my dad about whose side to take. That evening, grandmother Lynette called again. Don't let your mother guilt you, she warned. Then she shared something I never knew. My mom had always made excuses for Kevin because he was the oldest. When he was young, he'd throw massive tantrums until he got his way, and my mom learned to just give in. It was the path of least resistance, Lynette explained, a pattern I recognized from my own parenting mistakes. She was sorry I'd paid the price for so many years. She was proud of me for setting boundaries. Your grandfather would have been proud, too, she said, her voice emotional. I thanked her. Finally, someone in this family understood. The kids stayed with me for 2 more days, talking endlessly about the graduation. They made construction, paper crafts of college caps and diplomas. Ryder and Zoe played graduation ceremony with their stuffed animals. Mariana, with serious eyes, asked if she could come to my next graduation when I become a doctor, because she wanted to throw more real flower petals. I explained I was done with school, but she brightened. Maybe I can have my own graduation someday and you can throw petals for me? I promised I absolutely would. She hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. My phone buzzed with a text from Kevin. He and Algra were coming back early. The trip was cut short, the tension unbearable. He was coming to pick up the kids, and we needed to talk. My stomach dropped. The confrontation was here. I texted back. He could pick up the kids, but no conversation until he calmed down. I reminded him he'd threatened to beat me. He responded, dramatic. I was just angry. He promised to be civil for the kids. I didn't believe him, but at least I had it in writing. Around 3 p.m., my neighbor knocked. "There's a man sitting in a car outside," she said, worried. "He's been staring up at your windows for 20 minutes. Kevin." I called Dana. "Can you come over? As a buffer. Be there in 15. Want me to bring my boyfriend?" "Yes," I blurted, not even thinking. Her boyfriend was a rugby player. I knew Kevin wouldn't try anything with him standing there. Dana and her boyfriend arrived just minutes before the knock. Through the peephole I saw Kevin, sunburned, worn out, face beat red. I opened the door. He barely glanced at me. "Where are my kids?" The kids heard his voice and came running, excitedly talking over each other about graduation. Mariana pulled out my phone to show him the photos. I watched Kevin's jaw tighten as he scrolled through pictures of his kids, holding signs about their amazing aunt. His face got redder with each photo. The kids ran to gather their things. Kevin turned to me. "We're not done with this conversation. You need to make things right with my wife." I looked him straight in the eye. My voice was calm, though my heart pounded. "I have nothing to make right. I kept your kids safe and gave them a wonderful experience. If your marriage is in trouble, it's because of your own lies." Kevin's face turned scarlet. He opened his mouth to rage. But then Dana's boyfriend stood up from the couch and took one silent step forward. Kevin looked at him, then seemed to think better of whatever he was about to say. He called for his kids. As he walked out, he stopped at the door. Over his shoulder, he snarled, "The family will hear about what kind of person you really are. You'll regret choosing a piece of paper over family." Then he left. I closed the door and leaned against it, my legs weak. The whole thing was over in less than 5 minutes, but it felt like hours. I slid to the floor, knees to my chest. Dana sat beside me, her arm around my shoulders. I started to cry, a quiet, exhausted, breathless cry. Dana just held me. Her boyfriend quietly said he'd wait in the car. After he left, Dana pulled me closer. "You did nothing wrong. His anger is just him realizing he can't control you anymore. He's losing his power." I wiped my face. "I feel stupid for crying." "You're not stupid. Standing up to family is harder than strangers because they know exactly which buttons to push." We sat there for 20 more minutes until I calmed down. Dana reminded me, "You just walked at your graduation with 3 kids cheering for you, while Kevin was stuck paying triple for a hotel. That's a win, no matter how much he yells." The next day, my phone was silent. No angry texts, no voicemails, no family group chat messages. It was almost eerie after 5 days of constant notifications. Around noon, a text from Algra. "Can we meet for coffee without Kevin knowing?" I stared at it. A trap? More guilt? Or she wanted to hear my side? I texted back, yes. We met the next afternoon. Algra looked completely worn out, bags under her eyes. She ordered tea, wrapped her hands around the cup, and stared at it. Then she looked up. "I haven't been sleeping," she said. She'd been thinking about all the times Kevin manipulated situations. She started listing examples I didn't even know. He told her parents she was too busy. When he just didn't want to drive, he canceled plans with her friends, claiming a babysitter fell through when he never called one. "Once I started looking for the pattern," she said, "I saw it everywhere." She put her cup down. "Kevin's been painting you as the selfish sister for years." I believed him. I had no reason to question him. Her voice cracked. "I'm so sorry for judging you." She told me she'd given Kevin an ultimatum: marriage counseling, or she was taking the kids to her parents. "I mean it," she said. I'm not raising my kids to think it's okay to lie and manipulate. I appreciated her apology, but said she didn't need to apologize for believing her husband. She shook her head. I should have questioned things more. There were signs, and I ignored them because it was easier. I carefully shared the full history of Kevin disrupting my milestones. The LSAT, the bachelor's graduation, all the times he'd expected me to drop everything. Algra's face grew more upset with each story. His behavior isn't just about you, she said. It's a pattern of prioritizing his needs over everyone else's. She'd made excuses because she loved him, but now she realized it was deeper. We talked for 2 hours. She told me Kevin's parents had always enabled him, bailing him out, expecting others to accommodate him. His mom had called her yesterday, demanding she forgive him and stop making a big deal out of one ruined vacation. That call, Algra said, made her realize the problem ran deeper than just Kevin. His whole family trained him to expect special treatment, she whispered. His mom even told her Kevin was sensitive and needed extra support, like he was still a child. That conversation, Algra said, opened her eyes more than anything. Before we left, Algra asked if I'd be willing to attend a family therapy session with her and Kevin. I hesitated. I didn't want to be dragged into their marriage. She reached across the table, touched my hand. It would help to have someone who can speak to Kevin's pattern of behavior beyond just my observations. The therapist needs to hear it from someone outside our marriage who experienced the same manipulation. I thought about it. Part of me wanted to say no, stay out of their mess. But Algra was trying to fix things. I agreed to one session, making it clear it was to support her, not to reconcile with Kevin on his terms. She nodded. The therapist will focus on Kevin's behavior patterns, not on making you compromise or apologize. We hugged. I'm grateful you stood up for yourself, she said. It opened my eyes to things I'd been ignoring. That evening, my mom called. Her tone was completely different, less angry, more worried. She'd talked to my dad and grandmother. She admitted she'd been making excuses for Kevin too long. I'm sorry for not supporting you, she said, her voice quiet. I should have recognized the pattern years ago. She said she'd been thinking about all the times she chose Kevin's comfort over my needs. She admitted she'd trained him to expect everyone to accommodate him because it was easier than dealing with his tantrums. It's my fault he turned out this way, and I'm sorry you had to pay the price for my parenting mistakes. She was proud of me for setting boundaries. She promised to support whatever relationship I chose with Kevin, to treat us equally. I thanked her. When we hung up, I felt lighter than I had in days. A week later, the therapy session. I changed my outfit 3 times. Nothing felt right for confronting your brother's manipulation with professional help. Kevin and Algra were already there, Kevin with arms crossed, jaw set. Algra looked tired but focused. She gave me a small, grateful smile. The therapist, a kind woman in her 50s, laid out the ground rules. Everyone speaks without interruption. Kevin jumped in first, accusing me of betraying his trust, ruining his trip, a revenge plot. He complained about the money, Algra barely speaking to him. She's holding a grudge over nothing, he fumed. The therapist listened, wrote notes. Then she asked Kevin why he expected me to miss my graduation. He stumbled. It wasn't about missing it, just postponing it. She asked if he understood ceremonies happen on specific dates. Yeah, but family emergencies come first, he said. What emergency? She asked. I'd already booked the trip and told Algra. Kevin said, as if that was justification. Then it was my turn. I took a breath. I started from the beginning. The LSAT, the bachelor's graduation in the bathroom. This master's degree earned over 6 years of night school. I recounted Kevin's call, his demands. My voice stayed level, though my hand shook. Kevin's face turned redder with each example. The therapist asked if he remembered these events. Yeah, but those were different situations. How? She pressed. He couldn't give a clear answer. He mumbled. I only asked when I really needed help. The therapist asked if needing help meant others had to sacrifice their important events. Family helps each other. Kevin insisted. Does that go both ways? She asked. Kevin went quiet. Then Algra spoke. Her voice was steady, infused with a quiet anger. She told the therapist about Kevin's manipulative patterns in their marriage. Lying to her parents, canceling plans with her friends, painting me as a selfish sister. Kevin tried to interrupt, but the therapist held up a hand. Listen to how your actions affect people. Kevin's mouth snapped shut. Algar described hearing Kevin's mom say he was sensitive and needed extra support. That made me realize, Algar said. Kevin was trained his whole life to expect special treatment. The therapist asked Kevin what he was hearing. Everyone's ganging up on me, he muttered. That wasn't what I asked, she said gently. Kevin was silent for a long moment. Finally, he said, I hear that they think I'm selfish. The therapist clarified it wasn't about thoughts, but about recognizing a pattern. In every example, Kevin prioritized his needs and schedule over others' time and achievements. That shows a lack of respect for autonomy, she concluded. Kevin argued about family obligation. The therapist agreed family helps, but help should be requested with respect for the other person's right to say no. What you were describing wasn't asking for help. It was demanding compliance and using guilt. Kevin's face cycled through anger, denial, confusion. The session continued. By the end, Kevin looked utterly deflated. He didn't have some big apologetic breakthrough, but he did agree to individual therapy. The therapist told him bluntly that his marriage and family relationships were at serious risk if he didn't work on this. Something shifted in Kevin's face. Not acceptance, but maybe the first hint that this was real. We left in silence. Algra touched my arm. Thank you for coming. Having concrete examples from outside our marriage helped the therapist see the full picture. Kevin walked to his car without a word. He looked less angry, more deflated, like his certainty had been popped. I drove home, drained but relieved. It was a start. 2 weeks later, my dad called, suggesting a family dinner to clear the air. I didn't want to go, but avoiding him forever wasn't realistic. I agreed, but made Dad promise it would be somewhere public. We met at a chain restaurant. My mom hugged me, whispered she was proud. Kevin came in last, uncomfortable. Small talk. Then my dad cleared his throat. We need to talk about what happened. Kevin, for the first time, looked at me. I'm sorry for demanding you skip graduation, he said, stiffly. I'm sorry for the threatening voicemails. Then the inevitable excuse. I was under a lot of stress. My jaw tightened. Even his apology had an excuse. I accept your apology, I said, but things need to change. I won't be your automatic backup for childcare. If you want my help, you need to ask respectfully and accept no as an answer. Kevin nodded, silent. My dad spoke up. He'd been thinking about our family patterns. Kevin, he said, I've noticed you expecting special treatment for years. It needs to stop. Kevin's eyes went wide. He clearly expected our parents to side with him. My dad kept going. You're an adult with your own family. You need to respect other people's schedules and boundaries. My mom added, I'm sorry for enabling Kevin. I've been making excuses for him since he was young, and it wasn't fair to you. I promised to treat you more equally. Kevin looked utterly shocked. His mouth opened, closed. He was processing that his parents weren't going to automatically defend him anymore. The rest of dinner was awkward but productive. We set boundaries. Kevin would ask for help 2 weeks in advance. I had the right to say no without guilt. Our parents would stay neutral. Kevin agreed, still shell-shocked. We left the restaurant, and I felt lighter. It wasn't a magical fix, but it was progress. Our parents had backed me up. Kevin had apologized, even if imperfectly. We had clear boundaries now. 3 weeks later, a text from Kevin that made me do a double take. He was asking if I could watch the kids in 2 months for a date night. Not telling me, not demanding. Actually asking with a please and, I understand if you're busy. I checked my calendar. I was free. I texted back. Yes, and thanks for asking so far ahead. He sent a thumbs up. No guilt trip. No lecture. Just a simple thanks. This was how normal siblings were supposed to interact. It felt weird how weird it felt. Grandmother called a few days later, pleased. I'd started something. My cousin told Kevin she needed a week's notice for babysitting. My aunt informed him she had her own life. Kevin's father-in-law gave him an earful. Kevin's learning the hard way he can't manipulate everyone into being his personal support staff, she said, sounding proud. Looks like you inspired a minor rebellion. I laughed. I just wanted to walk at my own graduation without drama. Sometimes one person standing up makes others realize they can too, she said. Work became my escape. My boss called me in, congratulated me on the master's, and offered me a management position. Significant raise my own team. She said my dedication to finishing school while working full-time showed the kind of commitment they valued. I walked out of her office feeling validated in a way Kevin could never understand. He'd spent years making me feel selfish for prioritizing my education. Now that education was opening doors he'd never have access to. All those late nights, all those weekends spent studying instead of relaxing, it was paying off. A package arrived, Mariana's name in the return address. Inside a drawing she'd made, all of us in caps and gowns, stick figures with huge smiles. My aunt is the smartest scrawled across the top. My throat tightened. This 8-year-old had been paying attention. She'd seen me work hard, achieve something, and it mattered to her. I framed it and put it on my desk, right next to my actual diploma. It reminded me every day why standing up to Kevin had been the right choice. Not just for me, but for his kids, who were watching and learning what it meant to respect other people's goals. A month later, Algra texted, asking if I wanted to come to the kids' school play. Kevin would be there, but they were trying to do normal family things. I agreed. I wasn't going to punish the kids for their father. I sat next to Algra. Kevin was on her other side, looking uncomfortable. He nodded at me. I nodded back. The kids were fantastic. Afterward, Kevin approached me. Thanks for coming, he said, clearing his throat. My therapist has been helping me understand why I always felt like my needs should come first. It's hard to recognize the pattern when you've been doing it your whole life. This was the most self-aware I'd ever heard him. I'm glad you're putting in the work, I told him. He gave a small wave and followed his kids out. Algra squeezed my arm, mouthing, thank you. That night, I started browsing vacation packages. For years, I'd kept a specific amount in savings for Kevin's inevitable emergencies. Last-minute plane tickets, covering my bills if I had to take unpaid time off. That fund had just sat there, waiting to be used for his benefit. I realized I didn't need it anymore. I wasn't his backup plan. I transferred the money to a different account and started looking at beach resorts. Dana shrieked when I called her. We're finally taking that graduation trip. No family obligations, no guilt trips, just us celebrating 6 years of night school, a master's degree, and me learning to put myself first. I booked a week in Mexico. I felt lighter than I had in months. 6 months after my graduation, things had settled into a routine. Kevin still tested boundaries occasionally, but when I said no, he actually backed off. The therapy was working. Algra seemed happier. Marriage counseling was helping them communicate. My boss confirmed my promotion. My parents toasted my success. Grandmother winked. My new job, my own office, my team that respected my input. My education was opening doors Kevin could never understand. Then, 10 months after my graduation, Kevin's anniversary rolled around again. My phone rang. I braced myself. But when I answered, his voice was different, calmer, almost hesitant. He asked if I had a minute. Sure, I said, waiting for the manipulation to start. Instead, he said he and Algra wanted a weekend trip to a bed and breakfast. He was calling 3 months in advance to ask if I'd be willing to watch the kids. Not telling, not assuming. Asking. I checked my calendar. I was free. I told him yes. He sounded genuinely relieved. He thanked me. No guilt trip. No lecture. Just a simple thanks. That was the first time in my entire adult life Kevin had asked me for help with actual respect and advance notice. The weekend came. Kevin dropped off the kids with packed bags, a detailed schedule, emergency contacts. Algra hugged me, whispering thank you. The kids were excited, no stress, no fighting. We made pizza, went to the science museum, played board games, ate ice cream. They just acted like normal kids. Algra pulled me aside when they picked them up. She looked more relaxed than I'd seen her in years. Kevin is really trying, she said. Counseling was helping him understand that other people had schedules and feelings. He still slipped sometimes, but now, when she called him out, he stopped and thought about it. It's slow progress, but it's real progress, she said. Thank you for standing up to him. It was the wake-up call our whole family needed. 6 months later, I ran into Kevin's college friend at the grocery store. He stopped me. I owe you an apology, he said. He'd heard Kevin talking about therapy, about his manipulation patterns. Now, thinking back, he'd seen Kevin pull similar stunts with other friends for years. I always wrote it off as Kevin being Kevin, he admitted, but now I see it was a problem. He apologized for jumping to conclusions. I told him I appreciated the apology and was glad Kevin was working on himself. My new job kept me busy in the best possible way. One afternoon, reviewing a report, I realized something. Standing up to Kevin hadn't just protected my graduation. It had started this whole chain reaction that was fixing multiple broken things in our family. The kids were watching all the adults set boundaries and respect each other. They were learning it was okay to say no, that their achievements mattered. Algra was more confident. My parents treated us more equally. Even extended family members were setting boundaries with Kevin. Family gatherings still got tense sometimes. Kevin still occasionally slipped. But now there were consequences. Now people called him out. Now I called him out without feeling guilty about it. My graduation day kept replaying in my mind. 3 little voices screaming, "That's our aunt!" The whole auditorium clapping. My grandmother making them honorary graduates. Those kids being so proud of me. That memory reminded me every single day that I'd made the right choice. That I deserved to celebrate my accomplishments without guilt. That real family support meant respecting each other's big moments instead of treating them like inconveniences. Transition to a thoughtful, direct tone. Have you ever had to stand up to a family member who just kept pushing your boundaries? Or maybe you were the Kevin in the story and had your own wake-up call. I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Let me know what you think.